Secretary Rubio said that they were aggressively removing visas of Chinese students. Yesterday, you said you wanted to allow 600,000 Chinese students to study in the United States. Could you and the Secretary clarify what is the policy on Chinese students in the United States?
Well, we think we're getting along very well with China. And I'm getting along very well with President Xi. I think it's very insulting to say students can't come here because they'll go out, they'll start building schools, and they'll be able to survive it. But I like that their students come here. I like that other countries' students come here. And you know what would happen if they didn't? Our college system would go to hell very quickly. And it wouldn't be the top colleges. It would be colleges that struggle on the bottom. And you take out 300,000 or 600,000 students out of the system. I like having, and I told this to President Xi, that we're honored to have their students here. Now, with that, we check and we're careful and we see who's there. And Marco wants that. We're in the same position. But we have a tremendous college system, the best in the world. Nobody even close. That's why China sends them here.
Hello, Bobby Jones here for MeidasTouch and VALOR Media Networks. January 20th, 2025, President Trump took the oath of office to start his second term as President of the United States. And in that, he wasted no time in starting a war that is now being called the war on intellect. Within hours of entering the White House, President Trump began to implement an educational policy that has seen children from ages 4 all the way to grown adults in their senior years be affected by a deliberate attack on educational institutions in the United States that Trump and his administration does not feel like reflect the values and the ideas that he wants to push forward for America moving forward. Now, like many things in the second administration, the genesis of this movement can be traced back to the infamous Project 2025 manual on how to run the United States of America in this second Trump administration. But the damage that's being done goes beyond just short term. It also moves into long-term devaluing of the educational process and could have an effect on America both strategically and intellectually far, far into the future. In this video, we're going to talk about what has exactly happened since January 20th, 2025, who's been impacted and affected by it, and most importantly, what does it say long-term about the American public and its intellectual curiosity? Among the first things that President Trump did, and I mean within hours of taking the oath of office, he began to immediately roll back protections that made it possible for various members of American society, particularly in K through 12 school, to feel safe in their environment. Specifically, he targeted the LGBTQ plus community. He also targeted those who were considered DEI personnel and even accessibility challenged personnel. In some of the executive actions that he took, he made a point to roll back any type of mention or any type of special consideration for the LGBT community, as well as making it basically illegal for local, state, and federal educational institutional bodies to even mention DEI. They, of course, famously used AI to try to wipe out anything that mentioned DEI in federal government, but there were conditions to congressionally approved federal funding that President Trump had the Department of Education withhold unless local school districts basically pledged fealty to the ideas that Trump wanted pushed. Meaning, if you did actually recognize the historical and systemic racist issues the country has had to deal with, you then could be subject to a withholding of federal funds. And so you had school districts all over the country scrambling on how to deal with this issue. But the joke was on them because come midsummer of 2025, federal funding in billions of dollars was withheld anyway things that affected after school programs, Head Start, reduced and free lunch programs, all withheld at the federal level. And the Department of Education led the charge. The same Department of Education that Project 2025 once eradicated, the same Department of Education that Linda McMahon, i.e. the WWE Worldwide Wrestling Entertainment owner, is in charge of, and the same Department of Education that has already been gutted. Many people, personnel, subject matter expertise, all have been fired or forced into early retirement. And so what you have is a situation where the very arm that Congress established to make sure that funding went to the right people at the grade school level all the way into college has been gutted. And that same organization, with the few embers that it has left, has been used to make it harder for kids to go to school, for kids to be fed, for kids to get buses, for kids to feel safe in their environment. And if that wasn't enough, many kids are now having to deal with the threat of deportation as they go to school. One of the first things President Trump did when he came back into office was to roll back protections that President Obama put in place to make sure children of illegal immigrants were not forcibly removed and deported while they were in school. It was considered a safe haven for, kids to go to school without fear of being ripped out of their desk and taken away. Well, Trump has gone back on that, and ICE agents have actually conducted raids in American cities against illegal immigrants, but at the same time, accidentally yanking American citizens out of their desk and apprehending them as well. It was such a thing that Los Angeles superintendent of schools had to sit there and hold a press conference to relay the terror that these children were facing. So after those traumatizing events, how do you expect children to go back in school and to focus on their schoolwork? Well, a lot of them have it. We've seen a rise in absentees in these areas that have been targeted by ICE, and the Department of Education, of course, not only stands by, they proactively do nothing to make sure that this continues to happen. But despite the lack of funding for programs like Head Start that have been shown to get kids that are impoverished much closer to going to college than without it, that's not good enough. So President Trump has also gone after the elite colleges and universities of America, starting with Harvard University. In an unprecedented move, the president has used his full might to go after Harvard and who they choose to admit to their institution. In this case, he's used the Secretary of State and the State Department to target the visas of foreign students who, depending on the year at Harvard, can make up 1/5 to 1/4 of the incoming class every year. So now we have seen the State Department, through diplomatic means, restrict who Harvard basically can admit. Now, of course, Harvard has sued, and this tit for tat has gone back and forth. I find it interesting that Harvard, the nation's oldest university, was on the docket first, considering I think President Trump's son, Barron, applied to get in but did not receive admission. I don't know if that has anything to do with it. What I do know is Harvard, along with other elite universities like Columbia, have been targeted because of the lack of fealty to the administration's belief on how education should be ran. We've had 45 other presidents, and we have never seen a president take such a keen interest in a university's curriculum. It literally is the opposite of academic freedom. And in a strange twist of irony, the fact that the president has frozen grants that allow kids to go to college, that make it easier and more viable for them to go, we have seen the president do a 180 on immigration, specifically 600,000 Chinese students that he said he's going to allow to come in and study in the United States. 600,000. His rationale being all of them will be paying full price for tuition. And without that influx of cash, these colleges and universities in America will be in bad financial shape. Ironic, seeing that the federal government is cutting funding to those very universities that he's going to allow Chinese students to attend. Needless to say, the backlash from the America First movement, aka MAGA, aka Trump's base, has been swift and harsh. The fact of the matter is, they see it as Americans being put on the back burner in support of foreign students. And they're right. They're right. But at the same time, that same group is not mad about the grants that have been canceled that fund cancer research and other medical advancements and other studies that have helped make humans have a much longer lifespan or a higher quality of life. What's happening is universities abroad, outside the borders of the United States, have opened their arms ready to receive basically the prize of America's self-inflicted brain drain. And finally, as we move up in age and we move up in complexity of education, America's military, one that used to pride itself on learning new things, approaching things with different perspectives, and going out of its way to stay and remain intellectually curious, that's gone by the wayside as well. Since Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of Defense, has taken office, he has ordered that America's military strategic thinkers, mostly flag officers, admirals and generals, and then senior officers, not attend security conferences, defense conferences, things where you meet with allies to discuss potential threats, how to deal with them, tactics and strategies on dealing with the threats that are currently in front of you. America has been MIA since basically the spring. And this is because at the Aspen Security Conference, one that America proudly has gone to in the past, Pete Hegseth said not to go because he did not want the American military to be subjected to globalist thinking and allies that do not hold President Trump in the highest esteem. So what is happening now is the Pentagon is subjecting itself to more groupthink influenced only by Trump and the people who see the world that he sees it and not necessarily reality. Groupthink in any organization is dangerous, but groupthink in the world's most powerful military is asking for trouble long term. So to recap, we have seen a gutting of funding, a removal of personnel, and a restriction of ideas and thought at every level now of education in the American educational system. That includes kindergarten, through high school, through college, through advanced degrees, to advanced think tanks. The funding, the forced firings, the forced resignations, the forced retiring of people that have taken literally centuries of knowledge taken from the American infrastructure of higher education is staggering. It's staggering. And what's left in its place? Emotional culture wars that in the long run, history is going to probably look back at us and say, what the hell were you thinking? I say all this because we are failing the youth of America with this thought process. We have made it now harder to get vaccinations for young people. We have refused to protect them from school shootings. And now we're taking away the very meaning of why one goes to school, and that is to pursue academic knowledge, to gain confidence in that knowledge so one day you can help better society. This has all happened in 8 months, where the United States of America, once looked upon as the place to go if you want to fully express academic ideas, has grown dark because of an ideological blanket that will take years for the country to recover from.
Love this video? Support independent media and unlock exclusive content, ad-free videos, and custom emojis by becoming a paid member of our YouTube channel today. You can also gift memberships to others. Let's keep growing together.